Mr. Gimle, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Can you
hear.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks.
Yes, we can hear, we can see. Rasil, let me know when you're on, okay?
We are live now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on India-Germany labor market and migration dynamics. This is an important topic as we look at how India's large and diverse workforce connects with Germany's needs for skilled workers. We will explore various dimensions of labor market in India and skilled labor migration to Germany. We'll also explore how circular migration and its impact on both the countries. What can be done to strengthen the cooperation between India and Germany? I'm excited about the valuable insights our speakers and the panelists will share today, and looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Without further ado, let me call upon Dr. Johann Morad, Chairperson of the Indo-German Society and former Counselor General of Germany in Mumbai, for his welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon from Germany. And thank you for joining today's important discussion on the topic of skilled immigration between India and Germany. As the chairperson of the German Indo Society in Germany, it's a privilege for me to partner with the Friedrich-Naumann-Stiftung for the Freiheit in Südasien to address this pressing and highly relevant issue. From a German perspective, as you already mentioned, skill migration offers a vital solution to our labor shortages, while at the same time fostering cultural and professional diversity. For India, it provides individuals with global exposure, access to advanced technologies, and opportunities for personal growth. This, in turn, could contribute to the country's economic and social progress. However, this exchange must be managed thoughtfully. Expectations on both sides must be realistic. Language skills, cultural adaptability, relevant professional qualifications are really, really crucial for success. Moreover, I'm happy that you mention it on your agenda. We must discuss how circular migration, where professionals move back and forth between India and Germany, can create a win-win situation for both economies. Knowledge transfer, entrepreneurial innovation, and strengthened bilateral ties are all potential outcomes of such a model. But we have to state already today that if you look to German companies in India, according to my own estimation, more than 85% are already run by Indian professionals. Most of them have been to Germany or have been in training in the German companies in other countries of Asia. This means that with a circular model, we also have to look how those who go into Germany now and might return are important source of skilled professionals for the companies who are in India already from Germany or those who want to come to India. As we explore all kinds of ideas today, I encourage all of us to think critically about how we can overcome barriers, improve the integration process, and build long-term collaboration. This is not just an opportunity for individuals or employees. It's a chance to deepen the overall partnership between India and Germany in a way that benefits both societies. Since I returned to Germany, I'm the chairperson of the Inter-German Societies, which means we have 26 local chapters all over Germany with almost 2,000 members. It is our mission to promote today the image of India, which is modern and positive, because we need this in front of the background of ever-increasing numbers of Indian students, Indian skilled workers, but also on the background of outsourcing jobs from Germany to India and of the German investments in India to come. I'd like to thank the Friedrich-Naumann-Stiftung for facilitating this discussion and to all of you joining in today. I look forward to the insights and the solutions that might emerge from today's discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morar, for opening up such a wide areas where we could discuss regarding migration and labor issues. This is really interesting. Now, actually, I would like to welcome Dr. Katja Hartmann, Head of the Scholarship Division of Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, for her special remarks.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on this program. I'm very honored to be here, and I would like to focus in my remarks on student mobility and education and what it offers to the labor market of the future. In 2021, the UNESCO published a study on student mobility around the world, in which they show that 6.4 million students study outside their home countries. Major receiving countries, according to that studies, were the United States as number one, you're not surprised, followed by the United Kingdom and Australia. However, after the three English-speaking countries, Germany already follows as number 4 among the top receiving countries, with around 376,000 incoming students each in that year. According to that study, India was number 1 of sending countries behind China. So you already see the big impact there. Just very recently, in December 24, the German Academic Exchange Service, you might know them as the DAAD or the DAAD, as it is often called, and the Center for the Study of Higher Education in Germany, published the most recent numbers on international student mobility and higher ed in Germany, and the numbers relate to last year, to 2023. For the past 10 years, the number of international students in higher ed has risen constantly. Last winter term, around 3,000, or let's say around 380,000 students, international students, have studied here. That is 13.2% of the student body in total. Indian students play a major part in this development. In 2022, Indian students already overtook China as incoming group number 1, and they have remained on the top ever since. Last year, nearly 43,000 Indian students studied in Germany. That is 12.3% of the total amount of international students. Compared to the United Kingdom, where Indian students make up around 14% of all international students, or the United States, where they are 13.1%, Germany has really become one of the most attractive countries for study for Indian students, globally speaking. The majority of Indian students not only come to study a semester, but they have a clear design to complete a degree here. Asked in a survey about their intention to stay after they completed their studies and enter the German labor market, 40% answered that they were certain that they want to stay, at least start their career here in Germany. 26% said that they will probably stay, and 30% weren't quite sure yet. However, only 4% said no, that they certainly will not stay in Germany. But you see, the majority of students who come in, complete their studies here, have an idea of staying after they completed their degrees. If you look on the other side of the migration, the student mobility at least, German students go far less to Indian institutions than what I've just talked about. the majority of those students are in fixed programs where they stay for a period of time, but only very small numbers really complete degrees. So at the moment, at least in higher ed, we still see a one-way street, very much so. But based on the current developments in regard to Indian students, and they're just sheer numbers of them here in Germany, I think that suggests the base is laid for many to enter the German labor market, at least, if they have the chance and are willing to do so. Just a last remark, what role does the Naumann Foundation play in there? We offer scholarships to Indian students to come and study here in Germany. And of course, the numbers of applicants are quite high. Also, we do sponsor quite a number of Indian students in their studies here in Germany, pursuing a master's or a PhD. And they certainly are excellent students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hartmann, for your insightful remarks. And absolutely, education has become very important issues, and one of the areas of the skilled labor migration. And then Germany is getting much more attractive destination for Indian students every year, every passing year. It's very interesting to hear from you, Dr. Hartmann. We have also requested Mr. Stephen Sotum, Managing Director, International Affairs, Federal Employment Agency Headquarters in Germany, for the address. He has become very kind to send a video message. So may I request Niels, could you please play the video of Mr. Sotum?
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dear colleagues at Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. Thank you for organizing this event. Your dedication to fostering meaningful dialogue on such a crucial topic is truly commendable, and we are grateful for your commitment to advancing Indian-German relationship. It is my pleasure to give a short welcome speech at this webinar on India-Germany labor market and migration dynamics, and to share with you the perspective of the Federal Employment Agency on today's topic. As we all know, the labor markets and migration dynamics between India and Germany have evolved significantly over the last years. From skilled professionals and students to the growing trend of business and academic exchange, the bilateral cooperation between our two nations has laid the foundations for a thriving relationship. Germany, as one of the largest economies in Europe, has recognized the value of India's young, dynamic workforce and the potential it holds in shaping global trends. In recent years, Germany has increasingly turned to India to meet the demands of its labor market, especially in sectors such as IT, engineering, healthcare, and research. Here are some impressive figures. Employment of people from India subject to Social Security contributions increased more than fivefold between 2015 and 2024. In February 2024, 130,000 Indians were employed in the German labor market and subject to Social Security contributions. The number of Indian students in Germany has more than doubled over the past 5 years. Indian nationals made up the largest group of foreign students in the 2023-24 winter semester at around 49,000 students, 30% of them women. Unfortunately, we cannot solve all existing process challenges, such as different recognition procedures in the federal states, waiting times at immigration authorities, inadequate integration structures, or housing problems. But we can address them in our political, public, and business networks. I can assure you that we are doing exactly this, and I'm optimistic that we will be able to solve these challenges in the future. Thank you once again, dear Dr. Klein, for bringing us all together. I wish you a fruitful discussion and insightful contributions from the esteemed panelists and participants today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank Mr. Suttung for the insightful remarks. And without further delay, I'll introduce our moderator of today's webinar, Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, and hand over the floor to him for his further discussion. Ghanshyam Tiwari is a national spokesperson of Samajwadi Party and an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and Harvard Kennedy School. In his professional career of more than 2 decades, he has advised many chief ministers and parliamentarians, mentored many startups, and then different organizations. Mr. Tiwari also ran for a member of parliament in Bihar in national election in 2019. Mr. Tiwari, the floor is yours. You could introduce your panelist and take a lead in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bipin. Thank you to the Naumann Foundation, and I thank every esteemed speaker who has spoken and given us a context, largely from a German backdrop, about what is working and what the intent is. It is clear that when you hand over the floor to a politician, the politician will oversimplify things. So I know that I am surrounded by eminent panelists who are all experts in their areas. But in terms of that political vulnerability of oversimplifying things, I see that the intent is definitely there on both sides. There's a young population, the population is aspirational, education is their passport to aspiration, and there are success stories that they want to imitate on the Indian side. And there are institutions that become the magnet. There are companies on both sides that support this magnet. So there is intent, there are success stories. I'm sure there'll be challenges. What will motivate us is to think about what is working out there. What are some of the success stories? What can be the solutions in the near term that we can think about? What are the sectors that take importance? And how do we build urgency in the mind of policymakers, politicians to take up this issue? And eventually we conclude in a way that, how do we do expectation setting? That if we were to have this conversation a year from now, that something positive would have happened, the challenges would be different, the scale would have incrementally been better, and this conversation would have played a role to improve the opportunities for those people who want to work in Germany, or those people from Germany who want to work in India, and those institutions who are part of this process. So with that oversimplification, I would like to invite 3 eminent panelists, Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, Dr. Dhanya, and Aditi Banerjee. Each of them have tremendous professional and academic track record, and I don't want to steal their thunder by oversimplifying their introduction. So I will request that each of the panelists introduce themselves in 3 or 4 lines, and then apart from your introduction, also offer 1 or 2 insights of how do you see the current situation with respect to labor force, migration, and in the backdrop of your own work. Maybe highlighting just 1 or 2 things will allow us to keep the discussion fast-paced. So 3 or 4 lines of introduction and 1 or 2 things that from your perspective outline the current scenario. We'll start with Professor Santosh Mehrotra. Over to you, sir.
Mr. Tiwari, just to jump in here, we have Mr. Neil Hobbs also.
Yes, I am so sorry. I also would like to introduce Mr. Niels Hopwood. And in an earnest apology, I think I should reverse the order. I would rather invite Niels to introduce himself and share his perspective, and then we'll go to Professor Santosh Mehrotra. Again, apologies for missing you in the introduction.
So should I start? Okay, yeah. So thank you for the invitation. My name is Niels Haupt. I'm head of corporate communication of Hapag-Lloyd, which is Germany's biggest container shipping line, the 5th largest in the world. Most of our employees are located in India, which might be surprising. So more than 3,000 of all in all 16,000 employees are in India, in Mumbai and in Chennai. We have in Hamburg here roughly 1,500 employees. More than 100 of them have Indian descent. We have very good experiences with Indian workers, and it's not, as you might think, only IT people. It's people working all over the company in administrative jobs, in sales jobs, trade management, or also in IT. The big advantage, of course, which we are having is that we pay pretty good salaries. To 90%, we employ academics, and we have the chance to engage with agencies. One agency taking care of all the paperwork Indian people might need here in Germany. Second agency taking care of housing, kindergarten, and all the infrastructure you will need. So when people move here and leave the aircraft and arrive in Hamburg, everything is done. They know where they have to go. Second big advantage we are having is no German needed. So we are a pure English-speaking company. The only disadvantage we are seeing at the moment, and this is also because there is some disappointment with Indian workers we are having here, when it comes to partners or spouses, the first thing they get to know is, oh, first you have to learn German, which is, everybody knows that, a very difficult language. So people bring their partners who might be doctors or physicists or whatever, and it's very difficult for them first to start here because there's no company taking care of them, whilst we are taking care, of course, of our employees. And there's a lot of waiting time to get information, lots of waiting time to get the classes in German, lots of waiting time to get in touch with relevant authorities, institutions to find a job. So this is the other side of the coin where we are fighting a little bit, but where we can hardly help. So that's why we see sometimes that because if the partner is not happy, the employee is not happy as well, and then they move on probably to Dubai, which then is the second choice. So I would leave it with that as a kind of impression. With our experiences, our experience are very good, and the feedback we get from our Indian workers is also extremely good, that they feel they are taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Niels. I think it is phenomenal that there are 16,000 employees, and I'm sure that there is a lot of institutional learning that exists in how some of these employees succeed in a German company, both on the Indian side, on the German side, and also I think there is a good measurement of the challenge. I can say, even in a business school where I studied, for example, at Kellogg or at Harvard, there were JV clubs, the clubs that were dedicated to spouses, partners, such that they will have a comfortable time while their partner is studying at a business school. So I think whether it is the United States or UK, there are certain institutional structures that are built in already to support the partners as they come in. I think more on that later. One question for you, which when we come to solutions, is that have you come across models where German companies or institutions that get a number of people from India to work with, is there a collaborative that is there, is a collective that is there, that they are pooling together their institutional knowledge and putting out some kind of an open source course, open source support system out there for anyone else to benefit from? Because I think it is the collective that can potentially benefit a lot more people than individual companies working in silos. So that's on the solution side when we come to it. Going over to Professor Santosh Mehrotra. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Ghanshyam. Can you hear me? Okay. Hello to Dhanya and Ghanshyam and Aditi and Niels. Pleasure to see you guys. This is interesting. India has mobility agreements with 15 countries, as of now, I understand. But I hear that the one country with which there's been massive traction is Germany. I mean, apparently Germany is leading the pack. Though the head start really was held by Japan, and there is still an agreement there, and then trailing behind, not too far behind, I understand it now, increasingly Russia. So which is all very good news. So, I mean, the fact that things are really moving in respect of Germany. Let me just make 2 or 3 very quick points. I was very impressed by the number that 130,000 Indians are employed in Germany currently. I think what would help, my suspicion is, for those aspirants who are looking to move, is one, that, we have a readily available list of sectors where you in Germany are actually looking for people. and how that is to be that is accessible to potential Indians planning to move would actually be very helpful. I mean, I was looking at some information, and I understand that science, information technology, healthcare, manufacturing, and construction are large sectors with high unmet demand for the workforce. And I mean, it's interesting that together these sectors employ nearly 20 million people in Germany, but their total unmet demand, current unmet demand, is about 816,000 people, of which, I understand skilled Indian workers can target fulfilling about 37,000. So it will be good if young people here know better and more easily, and the private sector enables this kind of information to be made available. The second point I wanted to emphasize is this, that one of you mentioned language. The German language is a difficult one. And it is true that in the major cities of Germany, English is spoken very widely. However, a very significant proportion of the German companies are SMEs, and they're located in the rural areas. If they are located in rural areas, their working language is German and not English. So we've got a real problem. So if that's the case, then the young people here need to be prepared for language training in advance. I know that companies which are in this business are actually helping them in this area, and I know that they are required to do some language training once they arrive. The young workers arrive there. Yet, German assistance could be scaled up in respect of language training. My last point, and I'll stop now, is really a question addressed to our German colleagues, which they could help us understand. I mean, I understand that there have been reforms in the Skilled Immigration Act in 2023. What is the nature of that? And perhaps Niels can walk us through that, because they are quite complicated for Indians to understand. Let me stop there, and perhaps we can come back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santosh Mehrotra. Dr. Mehrotra is a regular participant in television debates that focus on logic and data, and on national and international topics. I think we missed his introduction, so if I can,
let me just say,
I request you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll just say two words. Sorry, forgive me, I forgot. I'm a former professor of labor economics at Jawaharlal Nehru University, which is the top-ranked university in the country, and formerly also of the Planning Commission of India, which is the planning organization of the government. And I've been working on skills in this country for at least 15 years, and actually making direct interventions in policy making up until recently, and still assist state governments as well as many international organizations in the whole skills space. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Dhania. I must say that one brief conversation I had with Dr. Dhania prior to this is that she is very passionate about the work she's done, and she's also a bit cautious whether her work is misintroduced by somebody like me. So I would want her to have the full floor so that she can share the work that she has done, and then relate it to the topic that we are discussing at hand, and focus in on one or two things that stand out about the current situation.
Thank you so much, Tiwari. And let me introduce myself first. I am Dhania MB from BB National Labour Institute. It's an autonomous institute under Ministry of Labour and Employment. And I coordinate a Center for Labour Market Studies, and I do research in the area of labour and employment issues. And as you said, this year, I got an opportunity to write a paper with FNF where we analyzed the evolving labour dynamics between India and Germany. And through this research, it became clear that India-German labour nexus, it's shaped by demographic and skill-based factors, holds immense promise for both countries. And as all of us know that India is well-known migrant origin country with around 18 million overseas residents worldwide. And this emphasizes the dynamics of international migration. And India not only provides a major source of labor migration, but also comes under the world's top destination for international migrants, majorly from the neighboring countries. And in last few years, and there has been a drastic increase in the number of Indian students out migration. And it was in our report, we were illustrating these numbers, and also we illustrated this substantial migration flow from India to key European destinations, like with the United Kingdom and Italy and Germany, prominent hosting Indian migrants. And also we were discussing in the report major aspects like majorly from the numbers like from UN and World Bank sources. And there has been a notable increase that we can see from 2010. It was only 55,000 Indian migrants, and 2015 it slightly rise to 57,000. Then again, we can see a significant increase to 172,000 migrants. So Germany, it's currently hosting the largest contingent of Indian students among European nations. And we again, in the report, we looked into certain hurdles like for Germany to attracting these high-skilled workers. So this is all about that report, and let's discuss it more later. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Danya. So over to you, Aditi. Aditi is one of the most phenomenal and quoted entrepreneur in the space of India, Germany, India, Europe, migration of workforce, especially a young workforce. In my work, I am an edtech entrepreneur, and I also work on workforce entrepreneurship. I come across a number of entrepreneurs who are trying that, but when it comes to Aditi and her organization, everyone see them as a gold standard who have been able to figure out successful pathways. I'm sure they have come through a lot of failures and a lot of hurdles, but I think cheers to her grit that at a young age she's been able to find these pathways that can become success stories for other organizations, both large organizations as well as other startups. So without further ado, Aditi, over to you. An introduction and the things that you want to put on spotlight with respect to the current situation.
Thank you, Ghanshyam. I mean, firstly, I'm not that young. And secondly, thank you for, the testimony to our work. But we have miles to go before we sleep. So just to kick this off, so I'm Aditi Banerjee. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Magic Billion. We support global employers in getting high quality talent from India. It's meant to be a bridge between global employers and Indians. We start with employer contracts in hand. So in that sense, we are not like a jobs portal. We are instead a company which first gets a contract from global employers. When I say global, I'm very specific in saying those kinds of countries which are aspirational to Indians. So we don't work in the Middle East, for example, which is where traditionally 95% of migration from India happens internationally. Post that, we then support the candidates in getting access to those jobs, and then support the entire value chain afterwards, providing any upskilling if required to get to that job, any certifications, even external certifications, and then finally, of course, visa, immigration, and then onboarding support in country. So really, it's an end-to-end solutioning talent mobility company, which helps both global employers and Indians. So in the last 7 years, and it's a company that I co-founded with my father, who used to be the number 2 employee at the National Skill Development Corporation. So, very much part of the skills ecosystem, setting international standards for how Indians can migrate to other countries. So in the last 7 years, we are now providing access to about 4,000 Indians to go out every year. So it's scaled, which also, I think, speaks to a lot of the data which has been spoken of here, in terms of India and Indians moving out internationally, only talking about jobs here. And within that 4,000, about 800 is just to Germany. So Germany is a very important market for us. It's a fourth of our entire portfolio. Now, we started working in 2019 in Germany, and of that 800, about 50% are for Ausbildung, which is apprenticeship programs in Germany, And the rest of it is for skilled professionals, all kinds of sectors from nursing to truck drivers, bus drivers to hospitality specialists, etc. I think what it really shows, Magic Billion's growth has also been the emphasis that Germany has put and India has put on this labor mobility, which is what Dr. Mehrotra was talking about. Out of the 15 talent mobility agreements, this one in particular has really been pushed forward a lot. And somehow, serendipitously, we were bang in the middle of it. So now we have also set up a German company. The demand was so high in Germany from employers. And also, I must say that 90% of the demand in Germany comes from the SME segment, which is called the Mittelstand. It's really the backbone of the German economy. And 90% of the demand for talent comes from that SME segment. And sitting in India, operating an Indian company doesn't support that. With that in mind, we then set up a German GmbH company here in Freiburg, where I am at the moment. And that really is adding a lot of confidence to the German employers, because now they feel the comfort of having a German company being able to facilitate talent mobility from India. So I just want to leave with this section with 3 quick points, which I hope we will discuss going forward in this. If I were to talk about 3 areas where much work is required, and we are definitely trying to learn a lot and therefore push the standards. First is language. Can't run away from it. In Germany, you cannot run away from it. So different standards for different kinds of roles, but for apprenticeships, you have to have a B1, which is an intermediate level of German. To get to a B1 level from 0, it takes 6 to 8 months of full-time German language training. And we facilitate that. But it takes a lot of convincing to a candidate, to say, leave everything that you're doing, invest 6 to 8 months now full-time. There's a high opportunity cost to that. So one is language training. Second is recognition. For every skilled professional, about 95% of the roles fall in a recognition category in Germany. And typically, an Indian will fall short with their academic qualifications on that recognition framework. But even to get to that deficit Bescheid, which is the deficit document, it can take months, sometimes a year. And to be clear, there are, just for the craft sector, there are 57 recognition bodies in Germany. It's a very complicated market. Recognition needs to be looked at much closer. And the third bit that I'll leave you with is costs for migration. How do we deal with the costs for migration? Somebody needs to pay for that labor mobility. For skilled professionals, it's never a problem because employers are very willing to pay for skilled professionals. But for apprenticeships, and at this point in time, Germany is sitting at 1 million vacancies for apprenticeships. Employers are not willing to pay for that. And not for any other reason, but because they're unsure. They don't believe an Indian can come and fill that spot. Or even if they come, typically apprenticeships are for 3 years. They don't believe the Indians will stay for that period of that 3 years. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and therefore the employers don't want to pay for it, which then leads to the candidate bearing the burden of that cost. So in the spirit of fair migration, while skilled professionals fit squarely in there, but apprentices don't at the moment fit in there. So would love to have a chat on that in case this panel gets there.
Thank you, Aditi. I think it's very good that different panelists have spoken both about their experience in the sector as well as specific problems that they face. One thing that I think cuts across these problems is the bureaucratic, and I hear a lot, the bureaucratic hurdles that come in the way. In your own experience, what are 1 or 2 challenges from the bureaucratic process that you want to highlight? For example, Aditi, you highlighted about the skill recognition process, right? Even with respect to the other 2 things, language as well as costs of migration. One can imagine that with AI coming in, there will be new ways to focus on language problem. And if the industry bodies and the countries collaborate, maybe those ways can be accelerated. Similarly, with respect to costs of migration, one can also imagine that there are new cross-border banks coming in. Maybe there are different types of loans that can be formulated in future. But coming to the core question, that one, are there really hard bureaucratic obstacles that you have come across in your work or research? And two, are there one or two unique solutions or roundabouts that you have come across that can circumvent these things? So starting with you, Niels.
Thank you. As I said, we are pretty privileged as we are in the private sector, and of course we take care of the cost. And as Aditi said, I mean, some companies are not willing to pay. I would like to add that some companies are not able to pay for it. I mean, we need lots of skilled workers in the hospitality sector, and we need also lots of people in hospital or care for the elderly, right? All these institutions mainly are state-owned companies or private companies. Salaries are pretty low, and they basically don't have the funds to pay for it. So there we don't really can count on people coming from India. Looking at the bureaucracy, yes, that's an issue, mainly for the spouses or the partners of people who come here. If companies like us take care of everything, and as I said, we have 2 agencies hired who take care of the entire document process. So that, of course, is a big help. What I would like to add, which is a huge problem I see if the company is not taking care of stuff, is housing in Germany. We should not forget that 2015, we had roughly 1 million immigrants coming from Syria, from Afghanistan, so from the Arabic world. And like 2.5 years ago, since then we had like 1 million people, roughly 1 million people coming from the Ukraine. And the housing sector is very challenging in Germany, mainly in the big areas, the big cities like Hamburg, Munich, Berlin, Frankfurt, Düsseldorf. Basically, even Germans have to wait for 1 or 2 years until they find an apartment, or for students, it's even more difficult. I mean, as a student, you need to pay like 500, 600, 700 euro just for a room in a shared apartment. So I think this is a huge issue which Germany has to solve for its own citizens, but even more for the immigrants. So from my point of view, administration is not, or bureaucracy is not a big issue for us and for our people. It is a big issue, and as Dania said as well, language is a big issue for the partners. So if you want to get work here, and if it's not a company which is where the English language is the main language, then this is really a challenge. So language, I agree. Administration, bureaucracy is an issue, but I see housing as the biggest problem, the biggest challenge we have to master here in Germany. Thank you.
Thank you, Niels. One follow-up question that will come and in the final segment is have you seen, if you are working in your home country, you have access to some kind of loan, financing, etc. for your skill development or for your personal expenses. Do you see that solution available to workers who are in Germany and from India? And second, that have you come across, as a very large organization, have you come across collectives of corporates, the kind of body that Mr. Morat spoke about, organizations, the societies that are there to support institutional systems that ease out knowledge on these particular factors, on the factors related to migration? Have you seen any collective effort between industry and government, industry and civil society? So that is one question that I'll come back to in the next segment. But coming to Dr. Dhanya, that in terms of any bureaucratic, any high-standing bureaucratic issue that you have come across in your research, the 1 or 2, and is there a success story that you have come across? If you can briefly highlight, and then I'll come to Dr. Malhotra.
When we looked at these hurdles for Germany in this high scheme, and we were mainly looked at this Germany's recent slip in this OECD indicator of talent attractiveness. and where it dropped to 15th place in 2023 from 12th in 2019 in the highly educated worker category. And the countries like the New Zealand and Sweden, Australia, and Canada also have now surpassed Germany in attracting the proficient workforce. So even the Germany ranks 13th in promoting this entrepreneurship and 12th in fostering startup ecosystem. And however, it holds a strong second place in attracting university students. And in contrast, Anglo-Indian nations like US and UK and Australia and Canada, this draws many highly skilled workers from India due to their English-speaking environments. And the mismatch between these skilled workers' language abilities and German language hinders their integration into the German job market. And as a result, many foreign students from German universities seek jobs in English-speaking countries instead of staying in Germany. So this is one of the points which we have seen. And also, I think the second question, I think you asked something.
If you see a solution stand out that circumvents anybody in your research who created a solution that makes it all efficient in any one aspect.
For example, recently, as all of us know that from Kerala state, the nurses migrated to Germany, and it's like the term it is hands in hands for international talents. So that initiative, that recruiting skilled workers directly from India to Germany, that's a proven successful in sectors like nursing and caregiving. Then again, the Ignite program, the Indo-German initiative for technical education, promotes vocational training based on Germany's dual education system. And then it's this much.
So basically, either a program like Ignite that focuses on technical education, or a very focused industry initiative that goes country to country, such as the one that you spoke about in Kerala. Coming to Dr. Mehrotra, from your experience, and because you have seen the Indian institutions, the research bodies, apart from the challenge that stands out and the solution that also is an example, have you come across an Indian organization or even a German organization for that matter who's passionate about solving for this particular problem? I think that yes, there are corporates that are trying to solve for efficient labor migration. There are startups, there are academics, but have you seen Indian government, semi-government, industry organizations really taking it up?
Give me a second. Sorry, I was not unmuted. So as far as success story is concerned, my understanding is that there is a agreement between Kerala state government in Germany, which is specifically about nursing staff. Now there's a shortage, obviously, of nursing staff in Germany. And apparently this Kerala state government agreement is working very well for the workers, for Kerala people, and for Germany. So I think, I mean, I don't know a great deal about it. Maybe Dhanya, since you work in this space, you are from Kerala, correct me if I'm wrong, then, you may want to sort of actually explore this. But let me make two other points, Ghanshyam, if I might, following up on the issues, very pertinent issues that Aditi raised, and because I have some thoughts on this. The first issue that Aditi raised was the cost of young people to learn the language. I believe that that's only one of the costs. Now, there are 6 to 7 months, I heard Aditi say, of full-time language training. Now, I fully understand that because, 45 years ago, I also tried to learn German and I gave up pretty quickly and moved to other European languages, which came much more easily to me. However, never mind that. The point here really is which is a very important reason why I was emphasizing what the Germans could do. Your various foundations and your various education-related institutions which function in India, they could do much more in the space of language. The second issue, which I think I heard, was this issue of housing, which Niels raised. Now, appropriately so, housing for workers. Now, my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, Niels, that you have the largest number of immigrant workers in Germany are Syrian workers, a very large number. And I presume that number is only going to grow after what has recently happened, which we don't need to talk about. Now, the issue is your housing problem is actually only going to worsen. My suspicion is. So there is no alternative for the state to act, but for the state to act. By state, I mean your federal state, your provincial government, as well as your local governments. I mean, how you go about it is a matter of internal dialogue, which of course I'm not going to say very much about. But there is a job for the three levels of government. However, let me return to the cost on the Indian side and some responsibilities of the Indian state here. On the cost of the language training, partly could be reduced by more German institutes opening up. But on the loans issue, the loan suggestion that came from Ghanshyam, the problem with loans, Ghanshyam, is the following. For these young people, suppose they were to take the risk of actually putting out their money for learning the language, there's the uncertainty that they will actually be selected to go. So is it worth their while? And you see, that's why the cost is an important dimension that we will need to somehow resolve. My final point is also something that was raised. I think I heard it either from Niels or from Aditi or from both, which is that of the qualifications and the equivalence of the qualifications. The equivalence of the qualifications is the tickliest issue in international migration, and has been a long-standing problem, which has been a bottleneck preventing much greater international migration, which puts the responsibility, I believe, to a much greater extent upon the Indian state to get its act together on the whole area of recognition of prior learning. And I don't think there's been either conceptual work done on this in our country. I have just written a paper, just finished it with two senior colleagues who I've worked with earlier, Professor Mehrotra of the Central Institute of Vocational Education, who Aditi's father, Basab, would remember as a colleague of ours when we worked on the National Skills Qualification Framework, but more, and also Anita Sharma, formerly of GIZ. Now, the point is that Indian government hasn't really got its act together on the recognition of prior learning. We have to get our act together, and if we did, and put that a system of, I'm assuming that everyone here knows what recognition of prior learning is, so we don't have the time to go into that. There is a responsibility on the Indian government side, but there is also a responsibility, I think, on some dialogue taking place between perhaps governments with private sector coming in. Now, I heard on both sides, private sector. I remember Aditi coming and saying 47, did you say, Aditi, 47 types of qualification?
57.
Yeah, so there you are, 57. That's tough. That's tough for anyone. But nevertheless, the point is, we've got to get our act together, and the two parties need to be talking to each other much more. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So I know, Niels, you have to leave. So quickly coming to you for a concluding comment. And with one question that you can answer. As a very large organization, if there is more ambition to have more workers, or there is an issue that you want to get resolved, who among the policymakers, whether it's a politician, whether it's a bureaucrat, whether it's on the Indian side or the German side, have you seen the most relevant solutions coming from, or at least more empathy coming from, to work by your side to solve for this?
Well, I would see a lot of professionalism on the Indian side. I wouldn't have anything to complain of. Looking at the German side, we need more flexibility in the embassies and the consulates with getting the visa. This is taking too much time. Then, as Santosh just said, yes, there is lots of obligation we need from the federal government, but also from regional governments in terms of bureaucracy, administration, and especially for housing. I see that the need for Indian workers will increase, because we see that they have not only a very good reputation, but they have a very high ambition. They easily adapt to German culture here. I have some personal experience here in the building with my Indian co-workers, and they very much melt into the German or the international workforce here. And I don't see any big cultural integration issues. The big issues I see is the willingness of the federal and the regional governments to invest in housing and to invest in, making bureaucracy less and helping faster and easier to people to integrate here in the German society. Sorry that I have to leave, but I have my next call coming. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you guys. Hope to see you again one day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Niels. And I owe you a coffee or a dinner for missing your introduction right in the beginning. But thank you so much for joining us. And I will continue the discussion with concluding remarks.
Niels, before you go, if I may, Ghanshyam, sorry for interrupting, just to say to Niels that one of the reasons that you have not too much complaint about the Indians coming to Germany is perhaps that many of them apparently already have some international experience. They've come back with a certain, perhaps some in Southeast Asia or the Gulf or wherever. So they're a bit traveled. Many of them who are attempting to get to you they're thinking of this. We are now upgrading our aspirations.
Yes, but I see that also with students, right? I know lots of Indian students here which are studying at German universities, and they very easily adapt, right? I think that it's much easier for them to melt in than when it comes to the Arab countries, where there are lots of cultural differences, right? Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So over to you, Aditi, both for the concluding comments, as well as because you are an entrepreneur and you are forced by the market dynamics to keep looking for practical solutions that also ensure that the wish list is solved for. Everybody is talking about AI. What is it that you think the AI world will solve for? One can easily paint a brush saying that AI tools will solve for language, AI tools will solve for some of the hurdles that exist bureaucratically. It will not solve for housing. It will not solve for education loans. Also, especially with respect to housing, loans, any of these other things that industry can solve for. That question that I asked to Niels, that as you grew from 0 to 4,000, who were the more valuable voices, support systems that you found between India or Germany in this mission?
Yeah. So I will end with that last question, but before that, let me just pick on each of the points. It's been an interesting chat. On the language front, I think a solution here is in doing more language training once in Germany. The amount of time that it takes to learn German with an Indian trainer in India, where you stop listening to the language as soon as you're out of the classroom, versus learning a language embedded in Germany, where that's all you're listening to, is a totally different experience. So if we can reduce the requirements in India and then have more immersive German language once in Germany, I think that could reduce that opportunity cost for the candidate who has to do full-time German language training in India. That's one. It also solves for things like accent recognition. I mean, we have so many candidates who clear their Goethe in India and then they reach there and just don't understand what's going on because they don't understand the accents. It's different in different parts of Germany. So one could be on the language front to have more immersive language training in Germany. We are definitely looking at working with German language institutes in Germany to facilitate that as Magic Billion. That's one. On the recognition front, if there can be some standardization which can be developed on the German end. I know, Santosh, you spoke about the recognition of prior learning in India. Yes, great step, but also on the German end. For example, for nursing, it's fairly standardized. If you're a BSc nursing candidate or a GNM nursing, it's standardized. You know exactly what it'll look like in how much time. But for all other roles, if it can be standardized a little bit, then you know it's a copy paste and you know the type of candidates who would make it. But at the moment, the way the recognition system is designed in Germany, it's individualized to each candidate's paperwork. So second would be if there's some standardization on the German end for specific job roles, which are perhaps highest in demand in Germany. That's a second. Third, on the costs. So we did look at a lot of NBFCs in India who could support in giving cheaper upskilling loans to candidates. And about 20% of our candidates take those loans to go. We are also exploring German companies in India who could give CSR into this, opportunity. There's a lot which can be done. We're just scratching the surface. And I think the demand in Germany is so high that somehow the entire ecosystem has to play a role in making it happen. The fourth thing to say here is that in the changes to the skilled immigration law, which came about a few months ago, the Ministry of Labor in Germany has definitely tried to put a little bit more structure. So for some skilled professionals roles, they have made it clear that you just need an A2 in German, you need to have 2 years of professional experience, and you need to have a 2-year diploma in that area of work. So they've tried to make it specific. We are definitely using this and getting drivers and chefs into the country. It's standardized now for some roles. I think that's a great step forward. The last thing I want to leave on the concluding remark, as you said, look, Germany will always require talent. India is in a great place at the moment to provide that talent. We have this entire group of youth in India who are not the people who are the brain drain kind of folks. These are the hardworking folks in 2nd, 3-tier, 4-tier towns of India. They're hardworking people who can really become part of that Mittelstand, the backbone of Germany. These are the people where we need to make that mobility corridor for them. We are not talking, at least as Magic Billion, we are not talking about the ones going to universities. We're talking about the ones doing their 2-year ITIs in India. They are the right people to go and work hard in the shops and in the shop floors of Germany and earn 10x the income that they are earning in India. And they'll never go beyond that in India, given the competitive landscape in India. So I would say there are many parties at the moment trying to really move the needle. And next year, when this panel comes together, we'll be having a different conversation.
Thank you, Aditi, for summing it up on such a positive note with practical experiences. I think we are out of time. I would open the floor to questions depending on how Dr. Bipin you would like to. I know that Dr. Dhania also has to make her concluding remark, but if there are questions, then we will couple that with the question. Dr. Bipin, over to you for guidance. Okay, so maybe it'll take time for Dr. Bipin to revert. So I think with respect to concluding thoughts, what I'll do is I'll request concluding thought from Dr. Dhania, and then with that we'll possibly conclude the panel. And as Dr. Dhania speaks, if there are questions somebody wants me to pose, I don't know how much time is left. maybe I can take one question. I have gone through the list of questions in the chat. I've tried to mix some of them with what I have asked, which could have been quickly answered. But over to you, Dr. Dhanya, for the concluding remark.
For establishing a pathways for skilled migration, I think India's new UGC guidelines are opening doors for foreign universities to set up the campuses in India, and Germany could be a key partner. And by offering these pathways from Indian campuses to Germany, both in terms of education and employment, and students can make transition seamlessly into German labor market, and it will benefit from dual qualifications and cross-border employment opportunities.
Sure.
And along with that, there should be a German-based companies to invest in Indian education infrastructure, and which will encourage German multinational companies to collaborate with Indian education institutions to provide a job-ready skill development and technical training, especially in the sectors relevant to Germany's industry needs. So this is the conclusion.
Sure.
I just thought.
I think Dr. Mohad has a question. I see the hand raised. Please go ahead, sir.
Jürgen Morhard, the floor is yours, sir.
It's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah.
I totally jump in with one of my questions. I see quite a lot of activities in this market, as you excellently described. But I also see some, let me put it like, obscure structures in the market. So especially agencies, whatever, who are making really a good of extra money of getting appointments with Goethe Institute, with the embassies, and so on and so on. What are your practical views on that? And what must we do in order to avoid these obscure structures?
I think Aditi is well placed to answer that. Aditi, over to you.
I'm happy to take that, because we have definitely seen a burgeoning of very small players in the market today who are definitely putting all kinds of prices out there for candidates. I hear you. You know, there was a discussion going on. I don't know where we are on that topic now, but there was a discussion with the Ministry of Labor in Germany, but also with the embassy in India, with the ambassador, to set up a kind of a quality seal. You know, there's a quality seal at the moment which exists for healthcare companies. And we were having a chat about having a kind of a quality seal that the embassy could give out to certain companies after doing due diligence on certain parameters. So we were having a chat with them about what those parameters could look like. That could be one way of avoiding this, because the reality is that, and you know, we deal with so many candidates. To send those 800 who finally make it to Germany every year, there are probably 8,000, I would say, who approach us. And finally, those 800 make it. But just to say, most of them are ignorant. You can tell them anything and they would buy it, you know. So the onus of responsibility sits on the organization, which is actually making them imagine what it would really look like in Germany. So quality seal, in my opinion, might be a good way, where there is, just like the Ministry of External Affairs in India has a recruitment license framework. You know, you need to get a license to be able to send people out of the country. There's a certain annual maintenance of that. You need to adhere to certain standards, protocol. Maybe something like that could be a good idea.
Right. So I think
Ghanshyam, can I come in on this?
Yes.
Can I come in on this?
I just wanted to say one thing. I think Mr. Johan is here, so he raised his hand. He has a question.
Yes,
And then
yes, of course.
Professor Malhotra, you can come in.
Sure,
Malhotra,
sure.
you can come in. And finally, I will invite Dr. Kassan for the concluding remark.
I don't have a question. I just like to add some very important developments. You know, the whole process is developing, right? So we have been overwhelmed by this new phenomenon of this large number of highly skilled workers and also the other now on workers coming into Germany. And of course, it takes time. But of course, they are kind of role models, so to say. And one role model and a government who is playing this very nicely is the state of Baden-Württemberg. State of Baden-Württemberg, for example, has in all major cities welcome centers for skilled workers who are doing mentoring, who helps them to connect and at least to do all the administration stuff. So those structures are coming up. Then I mentioned, of course, these inter-German societies where I'm heading. We are also trying to change our old structure where we had a kind of community of those people who are interested and love India. First of all, to be more outward oriented. So we want to inform local decision makers and the public and the media about India in a very positive and modern way in order to understand and how to handle this new group of immigrants and the importance of India. And secondly, our societies are also opened up also for newcomers because they provide a home in a foreign country in a way, celebrating Diwali and all other kind of festivities. And what was also mentioned, and we also learned about the need, for example, for foreign spouses, for Indian spouses. Also what we do, we call it German Stammtisch, and we offer now special events in some cities, which is coming up also for the spouse to take care of them because they also need to kind of employment and appreciation. This is coming slowly. And what I see very, very happily is that those best practices are spreading in Germany. This is really, which is really moving on. And I'm very confident that we will see another and a better infrastructure for the whole Indian immigration on those groups next year. And somebody mentioned it, when we will talk next year, things will look like differently. And also on the creative side, also State of Baden-Württemberg created their own new agency only for skilled workers to handle their all kind of work permits and visa issues, residence issues, and so on, right? By bypassing the traditional administrative channels. I think there's a lot of movement, and if you look closely in Germany, there is almost every week 2 or 3 events dealing with those.
That's heartening to hear. I think it's one of those conversations where really tough problems are being discussed at scale, but no one is talking about AI. So that's that. Otherwise, everywhere else I go, I think all tough problems are now delegated to AI. Professor Malhotra, you want to come in, and then I would invite right after Dr. Kassan for the closing remarks.
I was actually encouraged to respond to Dr. Klein's question, and I have been reinforced in my thoughts that I was about to offer by Jürgen, in fact, what Jürgen has just said. So what was going through my mind is the following. You see, you're a federal country, we are a federal country. Remember that, you know, we are a vast country, and there are parts of this country where you will find more candidates for your unmet need, because your unmet demand for workers from abroad is, if my numbers are correct, 816,000, and for skilled workers is 37,000. Now, if you were to go south of India and begin to talk to our state governments, don't just talk to the agencies located in Delhi or the Union Government of India in Delhi. It might be easier for your states. I'm forgetting what you call them, but anyway, your states to actually have establish agreements So that in which case you would also get over the kind of problem that Dr. Klein was talking about, because you would go straight to the state governments. Yeah, back to you.
Can I just have a very short?
Yes, please.
It's also very encouraging, very rightly said, but although this is starting, there is an agreement also on the labor issue between Maharashtra and the state of Baden-Württemberg. Tamil Nadu was in Germany with a delegation looking also for its partner state. And I just recently also met with the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh. And as you said, that is a right way to do, to link up the federal states on a lower level, which can make things happen much faster and easier. And it's coming. It's coming.
Right.
Good. On that positive note, over to you, Dr. Klein.
Yeah, thank you very much to all of you, our dear panelists. I'm very happy to meet you soon in India or in Germany, in Europe or in South Asia. It was clearly showing that that is an issue which needs broader discussion, which needs broader and more perspectives. And we as Humboldt Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, we will definitely continue on these courses. Let me just point out 4 little points. Number one, I find it extremely interesting and very relevant that political people are meeting each other. So that is really necessary for the further decision-making process. Number two, and as you have rightly mentioned, Mrs. Hartmann and Mr. Haupt and also our dear panelists, it is extremely important to have entrepreneurs, especially in the German Mittelstand, the small, medium-sized companies, to give opportunities to more people from South Asia, from India, to do an internship, for example, as the first starter to experience, do I really like as an individual work in Germany? And that is also important because we have to see very clearly, and Professor Mehrotra mentioned that, we are now in Germany and with the German labor market in a deep competition with other countries. And that is really extremely important for us to see and to really find good opportunities to more easily enter the German labor markets. Amongst that is, for example, the extremely long distances time-wise regarding, for example, the recognition process. Number three, I find it extremely relevant as well that we have positive storytellers like journalists and so on. And that is Dr. Mohrhardt from the Deutsch-Indische Gesellschaft clearly said it is extremely important that we have to find as early as possible possibilities where people, especially students, interact with each other. And it is great to see that, for example, Deutsch-Indische Gesellschaft has started an initiative exactly to foster the opportunities for school people, for students, to interact more closely with each other. I think there is a long distance to go regarding knowledge and good and professional information regarding labor markets, both in India and in Germany. And there again comes the Bundesagentur für Arbeit in place. They are the professional providers for information, and it is good that there is also a lot of initiative from the international department there to really inform people who are intending to go and work for us or study for a certain distance in Germany. Last but not least, Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, and Dr. Hartmann said that very clearly, has a scholarship program for academics, but they also started a scholarship program for vocational training. And that is, as you said, the most, I think, really important thing. We have got quite good academic rates, but what we really lack is a good, profound, very professionally based vocational training and a good understanding of that also amongst many decision makers in Germany and especially also in South Asia. With that, thank you very much to you again. As I said, we will definitely continue this cooperation with our colleagues from Hess in the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. Thank you very much for your commitment, Mr. Walz and Mrs. Els. We will try also to interact in future with Deutsch-Indische Gesellschaft on these topics. We will have on 26th of June during the so-called Hamburg India Week, an initiative on skilled labor force exchange going on there. So that would be also a good opportunity to invite some stakeholders from India also to Hamburg. And we will do that. And we will, of course, also continue with these kind of webinars. Again, thank you very much, distinguished panelists. Thanks to our audience. Please check on social media regarding our upcoming other events. And please give us comments on what you have seen. That is extremely important for the standards and the quality of our work within Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Mohrhardt, for the cooperation. As always, with Deutsch-Indische Gesellschaft, thanks to the colleagues from the Bundesagentur für Arbeit for their great initiatives, also especially in the practical work. Thanks to the colleagues from Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, dear Bipin, Mr. Chavla, dear Tashi, thank you very much for that. And with that, I say thank you very much. That will be the last webinar this year. I wish you a very nice upcoming Christmas time. And of course, I also convey our best greetings for the season and a very happy, professional and good life with all your initiatives. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Namaste. And we see each other very soon.